Welcome viewers. In the previous lecture, we discussed the different routes and escape routes in Datta Bhagat's play, Routes and Escape Routes. We also dealt with some very difficult questions that are posed by the playwright in each of these routes. There are no answers given to this, but the play certainly steers the reader, the audience, towards an approach that is constructive, that is not anarchic. To carry the discussion further, we look at a contested space in the play. This contested space is a colony called Milind Nagar, which is being constructed for flood victims. But the colony has not been handed over to them. Arjun, who's a student activist, as we have already discussed, he decides to take the matter in his own hands and he takes out, a morcha, as it's called in the play, to Milind Nagar, and he forcibly occupies the colony. However, the occupants were also Dalits and not the flood victims of other social groups. Satish, who's a teacher, he opposed this step vehemently. But Kaka saw a new possibility, and to begin with, Kaka is euphoric about Arjun's way of working and a new turn that he has given to the movement where action is the need of the hour. Satish continues to maintain his stance and strictly oppose the position that is taken by Arjun. However, this initial euphoria that Kaka experiences, where he sees the possibility of change, is completely done away with when Kaka finds out that Arjun had collected money from the people who inhabited Milind Nagar. He also evicted Shivanta. Shivanta is the same person, the rickshaw puller's wife. She's a widow, and it is for her that Kaka had arranged a certificate so that she could study. So he also evicted Shivanta mercilessly for not paying the money, and she is eventually killed in the mob clash. When Kaka finds out about Shivanta's burning, he retires into his cocoon. In a sense, he goes back into the shell that he went into immediately after independence, when he was wondering what should the movement be all about and what is to be done. Kaka is shocked at the distortions in Arjun and the distortions that he is bringing about in the movement. He could not even imagine how Shivanta was thrown out and ultimately she dies, and all this is for just 50 rupees. But he does not lose heart, and it is the ideals of Ambedkar that give him hope, and he once again turns towards them. He also brings Buddha's statue at home. This idol was initially meant for Milind Nagar, but Kaka refuses to give it to them. He also rejects any kind of charity that is being given, by the powerful state functionaries. He cites the history of the Dalit movement, and he says and I quote from the play, "From eating the meat of dead cattle to a state where the town boycotted them and they had no wages, they built a new life, surviving," he says, "on tarota leaves." So, this transition is important, and so he says, Kaka says that these boys showed me a new courage. So Kaka's generation is speaking about not Satish's generation, but Arjun. So I quote from the play, "These boys showed me a new courage and I felt alive again. But even they are going the same way now. Go, all of you, go the same way. But this Kaka is the genuine heir of Baba Saheb. Go accept those garlands, bow down before them if you want to, but I won't. This old man will break but not bend. So, quotes close. So, Kaka is very clear that he will not fall into this kind of an anarchic setup that is being promoted by the youth, that is being promoted by Arjun Jadhav, who's a student. Now here we also ask that the play is written as part of a workshop in 1972, performed in the 80s. A lot happens through the decade of the 70s and 80s, and the high point of the Dalit Panther movement, the disintegration, all that is there. And here Datta Bhagat is asking a question that is very relevant to that time. And the question is about what is the correct way to proceed. So, Kaka finally realizes that the happiness he had felt in Arjun's ways was false, and there is no need for this kind of happiness. True happiness and the way ahead lies in the ideals of Baba Saheb. We then move to an understanding of another person from the same generation, that is Das Rao. Now, Das Rao here clearly represents the double standards of someone who belongs to the upper caste and makes a claim to improve the conditions of the oppressed groups. Das Rao cannot accept Sonal's love for Arjun, but instead of speaking to Sonal, he immediately assumes that Arjun is the one who has actually tried to trap Sonal. So, instead of confronting his own caste anxieties, he thinks that it is Arjun who has done everything, and he finds it very convenient to humiliate Arjun. Datta Bhagat is once again posing a very crucial question. Are theoretical ideas about equality put into practice? Do we truly believe them? Datta Bhagat exposes the shortcomings in the sensibility of people who preach one thing and practice an entirely different one. We then move to Arjun Jadhav, who is committed that whatever be the system, he must certainly take the course into his own hands. And so, for him, it is a struggle that is similar, he considers it like the freedom struggle, and there's this huge rebellious streak, which is why it resonates, of course, with the Panther movement. However, we are also reminded of the streak that is there in Manohar in Whirlpool, where Manohar is asked to beg for forgiveness in Whirlpool, and he says, devotion to whom? He says that, it's better to live one day the life of a lion than to live 1,000 days as a meek sheep. So, questioning the position that Arjun takes, we look towards Satish. Satish absolutely rejects Arjun's position, tries to counsel him out of it, in fact. But Arjun does not believe in this. He takes matters in his own hands, and this translates into the use of violent methods. The play is critical of this position of anarchy and violence, and also a kind of one-manship in a group. That there should be a participative thinking through is what the play suggests, but Arjun's position is of a one-manship. He is extremely cynical, and he asks, what is the role of education for the people who are oppressed? And he sees it as unproductive to the movement. The play once again is critical of this position. The hope lies in Satish and Hema. Satish believes that it is education that can improve the position of people who are neglected, of people who are considered to be untouchable. When Arjun adopts the crooked methods of bribing and of violence, then Satish calls it Gundaism, and he says, to quote from the play, Gundaism is illegal and is not social service. The play is making a very important and profound statement here. At the end of the play, Arjun, whose options are very limited now, he makes a compromise and accepts the charity that is given by the minister who's building the houses, against whom he had earlier retaliated and taken out a morcha. Milind Vihar is finally burnt, and the government puts its at that best foot forward. They renovate the colony and rehabilitate the people there. There is a display of charity, money, utensils, clothes are given. But somebody like Arjun realizes that he has made a mistake, but he continues to believe in his own ideology, which is of resorting to anarchic methods. Arjun is still not able to see the kind of loss that Shivanta had experienced. So, in using the methods of the powerful, here he has not only made himself culpable, but he has also made the other people victims. So, Arjun's position is a position that is not viable, as the play suggests. It is a position that cannot lead to good for either the person or for the oppressed people. In this sense, momentarily, Arjun's voice has been muted. He too goes to receive the money, much as he believes that it is not his money. But once again, his position is compromised. We look here at a couple that stands out in this play. This is Satish and Hema. The voice of Satish and Hema in this play is the humanitarian voice. They met at a Vikranta camp and their marriage faced stiff opposition from all. Hema belongs to an educated family of reformers. She belongs to the upper caste, but this is a family of reformers. Her father is a judge. Her mother was initially a little disturbed about the marriage, but they gradually reconciled. But it is Kaka who was opposed to this match because he felt that it took the chance of prosperity away from a Dalit woman. In the play, their relationship is projected as one of equality. Both Satish and Hema are very confident that the road ahead has to be ascertained through education and that things must proceed in a law-abiding manner. Earlier also we had discussed that even in Shivanta's case, when a false certificate was required for her, Satish had not provided it. He had said that this kind of a thing should not be done and she should proceed in the correct manner. The play is not only telling us about the different routes that are available, routes that belong to different generations, their way of thinking, but routes that lead somewhere. The play is also asking us to challenge some of the assumptions that are being made in the course of these routes, which is where Satish and Hema's route is a very important route. It is the route of education. It is a route that reinforces humanity. It is a route that also reinforces a certain kind of idealism. Both Satish and Hema, this is a marriage that is where the two partners are treated as equal by each other, and there is a desire to contribute to the movement through ideas, through thoughts, and this kind of a bond that we see between Satish and Hema is ideal but is also rare. They are sincerely attached to the movement whose beliefs they practice. But Arjun's ways are very anarchic. Satish's philosophical tone raises the question about the relationship of power that exists in the society and where the deprived sections of society are placed. So, the play asks if there is any way that all the people and this vast group that is categorized in a certain way through the caste system, can their interests be represented? Can their interests be considered? Arjun continues to believe, despite his position that has been compromised in front of Pawar, he continues to believe that this is the only way, whereas Satish experiences moments of doubt, but he strongly believes that the only way ahead is through education. This difference in way of thinking, behaving, strategizing continues throughout the play. It allows us to assess and evaluate the different manners or routes in which one can approach the ideology and look at the road ahead. So, Satish believes in law, and for him, in the case of Milind Nagar, the alternative is not to forcibly occupy the place, but to register a housing society and to take a loan for it. The dedication and the commitment that both Satish and Hema show is dedication and commitment that is following the correct path. Satish also gently reminds Kaka of the Ambedkarite strategy and says, even in those moments where Kaka believes in the kind of route that Arjun has taken, he says that this is not correct and this is not what the movement is all about. Satish distinguishes between Morcha as a constructive force but looks at Arjun as adopting a way that is violent and destructive. He suggests that there is no point in meddling with the law. This consciousness is to be seen in the play. So, people are forever caught in this devious maze of routes and escape routes. But with each route, with each step that is taken, the playwright is prompting us to ask difficult questions. Satish is also, there is idealism, but he is also caught in a situation as the college decides to suspend Arjun from the college. Now, what is it that Satish should do? Should he support Arjun or not? He decides to support Arjun. So, he says, and Arjun of course is, very, very angry about everything. Arjun says, my caste, he says, I was not, and I quote from the play, I was not born into by choice. I don't want an education. Is there any dearth of those who are educated and unemployed? Anyway, what will I get from this kind of education? He says, I have chosen my path, and with my reason intact, I know what the ultimate consequence will be. But he is not, somewhere inside, he knows that this is not the correct path. He is also very angry at Tasrao. He asks, have I ever said 4 sentences in a row to her? Just because I live in a slum, am I shameless? Because I'm an orphan, am I a ruffian? Because I'm poor, am I a hooligan? He says, I don't give a damn for such respectable people. He said, can all Mahars be Ambedkars just because they receive an education? So he is extremely pessimistic, cynical, and anarchic in his approach. At the end of the play, Arjun, when he makes a compromise, for him it is that moment to think about the route that he had adopted. It is a moment for him to think about Shivanta's death. It is a moment to think about Kaka's disillusionment with him, who had rejected this route once he had got to know about Shivanta's death. So, we also have another question in front of us, which is that of patriarchy. The conflict that is there between Arjun and Satish and Kaka. The play keeps moving back and forth there. But the play is also raising a very important question in the context of the women and is bringing it in through Hema. She is a member of the Vikranta movement and she wants to do away with any kind of categorization based on Varna. Bhagat has portrayed Hema as a very sensitive, intelligent woman who speaks her mind with conviction. Hema's agony is visible when she lashes out at the whole caste system and she asks, if you call someone a Mahar, that's an insult, and what if you call someone a Brahmin? Is that supposed to be an honor? She says, I quote from the play, I rejected my caste when I married you. It's a deliberate insult to me, she says, to be reminded of her caste all the time. So, Hema is disturbed, deeply disturbed by the stereotypes around her that project her in a particular manner due to her caste status. She believes firmly in caste equality. In fact, of all the characters in this play, if we look at Hema, we get a lot of strength because the strength here is coming from a woman and she is also very firm. Satish is also very firm. He has his moments of doubt. He feels helpless, but ultimately realizes that what he is thought of is the correct path. She defends Arjun and Sonal and is very critical of Das Rao. Hema, despite the fact that Kaka is always slightly critical of her, she still remembers him fondly for his honesty, his sincerity to the movement. The baby that Satish and Hema are going to have, that is indicated at the end of the play, brings in hope and optimism, because this is the hope and optimism of a new generation. So, if we were to look at some of the points that are made towards the end of this particular play, Arjun says, I'll come to you, he tells Satish, I'll come to you when I don't have anything important to do, to discuss things. It will be a nice entertainment for me, he says, and you will get the satisfaction of having done a lot too. So, he seems to think that Satish's position about education is discussion based. The real action lies elsewhere, and this is where Arjun makes a mistake. Satish, on the other hand, says he's in a state of self-doubt. He asks himself, there's something wrong somewhere. And I'm quoting from the play, what's wrong? Where? Kaka educated me so that I could think. And me, I do nothing else but think. Nothing but impotent thinking. I have become irrelevant in this system, he says. Now, this is his moment of doubt. And as mentioned several times, that Datta Bhagat is presenting the roots in the society, but also the difficult questions that accompany. Satish feels that there is a lacuna in his relationship with his society, but he is unable to define it. He cannot find effective answers, immediate answers. That is also because there are no immediate answers. He is wondering what he should do to respond to a system that is divisive at its very roots. He redeems himself, finally, by Hema's reassurance of their faith in humanity. This is very important, and which is why it was stated earlier that it is Hema who has that kind of firm conviction in equality at all levels. According to her, Arjun also, his act of having saved Sonal, shows that humanity continues to flow. Somewhere, Arjun, despite all his anarchic methods, still has a little bit of humanity as he saves Sonal towards the end of the play. What can then be the possible route towards a constructive approach to assert the rights of people who are categorized in a certain way? Satish and Hema provide the answer. They are the streak of light as they suggest the path of humanity, the path of equality at all levels. And in doing this, they rush to save Arjun. There is hope then in Satish's efforts at creating space for the oppressed people, because he takes a loan for the housing society. So Satish simply does not discuss anymore. He has acted. He is not somebody who's just sitting and discussing. He has taken an active step, which is registering for a housing society and taking a loan for it. Satish and Hema, despite the fact that Arjun had taken towards the path of anarchy, decide to save him because they feel that if there is a humanitarian streak that is still there in him, then they should promote that streak. The child that they are going to have is a symbol of hope that signals a meaningful road ahead. With this, we reach the end of the discussion of roots and escape routes. The play presents to us different paths. If we take a look at these different routes again, Kaka and Dasrao, who had participated in the freedom struggle, believe in Ambedkar's path. Kaka believes in it strongly. Dasrao believes in it, but only at the theoretical level. He is unable to accept the possibility of a relationship between Arjun and Sonal. So there is hypocrisy involved. Then there is Satish and Hema, and then Arjun and Sonal. Sonal, who does not hesitate to express her sentiments towards Arjun. So the women are strong and they believe in equality. Arjun, who moves towards anarchy, and Kaka, who initially is taken in by this route but completely rejects the path that Arjun has taken. The sliver of hope lies in the fact that Arjun saves Sonal towards the end of the play. The important path that is suggested in this play is that of Satish and Hema. Satish, when he himself undergoes doubt, is aptly counseled by Hema, who tells him that the correct path is that of humanity. So the play makes a case for education and a humanitarian way of life. Hope you have a lot of questions in your mind about these different generations, these different routes. The play does not give easy answers as it raises difficult questions, but it underscores and reiterates the belief in education and humanity. Thank you.